Hello, my friends. So, after making my own pigment powder and turning them into watercolors, followed by making handmade cotton watercolor paper, my handmade art supplies journey has only just begun, apparently. If you're new here, I like to complain a lot, especially when it comes to anything time-consuming or tedious. And whenever I dive into one of these handmade projects, I cuss a lot off camera and whine a lot on camera. And by the end, I vow to never take on a similar project again. Then, after a week or two of cooling down, I take on a similar project again. So on that note, today I bring you the first of what will probably end up being a few videos on making botanical inks from nature, which is the definition of botanical inks, but you know, whatever. So our journey starts off in beautiful British Columbia, Canada, out in the urban wilderness of West Vancouver. With Ziploc bags in my tote and a mask on my face, I strolled through a beach with my BFF, aka my sister, and she graciously aided me in my search for natural dye materials. It was actually very sweet of her. She was Googling a ton of plants, which all started to look the same. After a while, we were convinced that every shrub was a madder plant, which is commonly used for red hues. We didn't find any madder, but we did find many other materials, including berries from a strawberry tree, something I've never heard of until this day. So naturally, we made sure they weren't poisonous to touch and picked a bunch, which I don't end up showing after this because they sort of got smashed in my little Ziploc bag. Shrubs, moss, bark, you name it. Whatever gave off any hint of color, we harvested. Cue the montage.
Bark and it's like healing on its own, so we're gonna grab some. This, I feel like this is gonna make a really cool color. Itself? Yeah. Whoa. Wow, nature's so amazing. Like you never notice these are those things that like drop. Oh wait, that's sad. No, because you have to get the double ones. No. Oh, never mind. They just...
Hey guys, I just wanted to quickly show you all of the goodies that we got during our little walk. So, I have no idea what most of these are. I just picked random like plants, flowers, and bark. So hopefully it becomes an interesting ink. After creating natural pigments, I didn't think I'd make use of my washing soda and aluminum sulfite again, because honestly, who needs aluminum sulfate on a regular basis? But turns out they both came to good use here, so I was really happy about that. Creating inks was actually not too bad of a process. A lot less tedious than creating pigments, since fusing pigments into a powder then mulling them into a watercolor binder adds like 10 extra steps. There was also no wait time here. Once you have your ink, no need to wait for any residue to dry or for watercolors to dry in their pans. No sir. Once your liquid is complete, you're all set to create art with it. The steps are quite simple. What you need are your dye materials, of course, some water to boil said materials in, washing soda and/or alum or aluminum sulfate to draw out the color, gum arabic to bind your inks onto paper, and clove oil or any sort of natural preservative to, well, preserve your inks. The last two, I'd imagine, are optional if you're planning to use your ink straight away and you don't mind a little bit of bleeding on your paper. Now, I haven't tried inks made without gum arabic, but I'd imagine this is what would happen, just a little bit of bleeding. Our goal here is to extract the color from these materials. So alum or aluminum sulfate, which are different substances but both can be used to draw out colors, are known as mordants for this very characteristic. Washing soda, which is also known as potash or soda ash, is also meant to help a mordant in drawing out colors. When creating light pigments, the alum draws the color out while the washing soda provides a neutral pH for the pigment to cling onto. This left us with the colors precipitating into the washing soda, which we then drained, and this left us with our pigment powder. During the first batch of creating these botanical inks, I used both washing soda and alum, assuming the combination would bring about even more color, without realizing that this reaction would cause a separation between the pigment and the liquid. With inks, we of course want the colors to be a part of the liquid, so this was a total blonde moment on my part. I ended up with only a couple of inks that weren't at all vibrant. My second attempt, however, turned out a lot more successful. I mostly relied on washing soda as my mordant, and man, oh man, did this stuff surprise me. After boiling my bark and avocado pits for like 20 minutes and hardly yielding any color, I was ready to write off this experiment as a total bust. There's no way a bit of washing soda could save this, right? Wrong. Y'all, this stuff is magic. It drew out colors that I didn't even know existed in these materials. And I wish I captured the full transformation on camera, but just look at these avocado pits. This was before adding the washing soda, and literally a minute after, boom, color. Dang guys, look at this. This is about, I don't know, maybe a minute after adding the washing soda. I was not expecting it to get this dark. That is insane. And like, this one is also quite dark. It's not as dark, but like, holy smokes. I am like, what? Look at that. That's, okay, I'm really excited. This just reignited my excitement for botanical ink since the last attempt was not very great. But yeah, I'm pretty excited about this here. I think I'm gonna let it boil for maybe another 5-6 minutes. I think it should be good. I don't think that there's much more color to extract. This one here, because the bark was so huge, I added more water, so we'll have to wait for it to boil down before we actually end up extracting all of the ink. And it's kind of hard to tell what color it is just because this pot here is quite full. So yeah, we'll wait and see. I think this one needs a little bit more water, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. But like, wow, I'm pretty excited about this.
Also, side note, I'm kind of watching a stream on Cyberpunk 2077. It comes out in like an hour, so yeah, just documenting it as a moment in history. I'm so excited for it. My brother just bought me the game earlier today, so I don't know if my little laptop here can handle it. Probably not, but we'll see how it does in low settings.
Now, it was quite a long day. I was helping my dad at a construction site and didn't even feel like making these inks to start with. But after seeing how the avocado pit and bark turned out, I felt rejuvenated. There's nothing more refreshing than a mad scientist experiment gone well. So I stole some of my sister's butterfly pea flower tea and boiled the heck out of it. Although I couldn't help but feel like I was cheating by using a packaged tea, even though they were 100% dried flowers without any additives. I had a fleeting moment of internal struggle over the point of this video. Was it to create inks as a whole or create foraged art supplies? But the moment quickly passed, and I figured while I was crossing that bridge, I might as well grab some of my strawberry rhubarb tea and see what color I could get out of that. Side note though, the point is to work with what you got, whether that be leaves in your backyard or tea leaves from Walmart sitting in your cupboard. Just experiment with what you got, and don't you worry about frivolous little self-imposed rules. Who needs those anyways? Now, after realizing the washing soda was the main protagonist in this video, I definitely gave my aluminum sulfate the back seat. And I wish I brought it out sooner to see which tones I could get with the same dye materials. But this was a very last minute realization. So working with the butterfly pea flowers, I separated a teaspoon of it into a little bowl and added some alum. And it turned purple. Okay guys, I'm gonna show you something pretty remarkable. So this here is the butterfly pea flowers. And this is butterfly pea flower with some alum mixed in. So as you can see, it's like a purple color, but I'm gonna show you something really, really neat, okay? Watch. So as you can see, it's a nice bluish purple color, but when it dries, it's gonna be something completely different. And this is crazy. Like, I wonder if eventually this vial in liquid form will turn this color. But yeah, I'll come back to this after it dries and you'll see it's pretty insane. You guys, it's slowly starting to dry and it's becoming almost a green color. So this is a color that the purple turned into. It literally turned into a green, which is insane. Like, how crazy is that? I kept some as regular blue since it ended up being such a stunning color, and added washing soda to the remainder, which turned it into a green color. So you could potentially get 3 different inks out of the same dye material. I really wish I played with this sooner, but you know what? Attempt number 3 is just around the corner, so we'll see what happens there. After having all of my colored liquid ready to set, I added just a teeny bit of gum arabic to them. Note that if you add too much, your inks will become tacky, so you just want a touch of it. The gum arabic I have is in a powdered form and it needs to dissolve in liquid. It helps if the liquid is warm. So for some of my inks, I waited a little bit too long, but I just popped them in the microwave. That way they were nice and warm and the gum arabic just dissolved right into it. I also added a couple drops of clove oil. So now my inks smell quite delicious and of course they'll last longer. Now, after going through this super long process, we have to see the inks in action. So I present to you a speed paint using only a fine liner and my inks, of course, on my Canson Mixed Media sketchbook. What I find interesting about these inks is that unlike watercolor, they don't dry lighter than expected. If anything, upon drying, the colors stood out even more. Another interesting thing is that my purple butterfly pea ink dried a really nice teal color on paper, whereas in the container and on my ceramic palette, it remained purple. So this was super witchy and I loved it. I was mesmerized watching the ink dry and change colors, just like a preschooler would. But it was really neat, okay? And of course, I had to draw the one thing I love drawing, and that's cute ladies. Yes, it's basic, but it's what I enjoy drawing. The reference photo was found on unsplash.com, by the way, link in the description. And I figured natural inks aren't something you would imagine using with a character sketch, especially one that looks like this. But you know, why should our supplies define our art? Although, because of the nature of the inks and not entirely being able to achieve a clean, flat wash as I would with my watercolors, this process did make me experiment a bit with my line work, especially when making her hair less defined, almost as if I sketched it out with a pen. Also, creating a faint background isn't something I normally gravitate to, but I figured it was suited for this. Because the colors were so similar, I ended up lining my cute bookworm gal with my Jelly Roll white gel pen, just so she would stand out from the background, and I really think that this tied the piece together. Now, I probably wouldn't use these inks on their own just because they go against the styles that I like to play with, but I definitely like the idea of using them to add texture to pieces, since they granulate and dry very unpredictably. So I think upon playing with these some more, I could end up with some really neat effects. In terms of light fastness, I hear that botanical inks aren't, but I see that as an extension of the inks themselves. The colors fading shows that it's a dynamic living piece. It shows that it was created using materials that are derived from nature, thus impermanent. And maybe I'm just feeling a little bit too sentimental, or maybe I'm onto something, you be the judge. But the thought of that alone just makes these inks all the more unique and intriguing. And honestly, I'd be lying if I said that this process was tedious, because compared to all of the other DIY art experiments that I've tried, it was actually the most enjoyable. So on that note, I truly hope that you give botanical inks a shot. Find some nice colored flowers or leaves and play with these natural materials. You never know what you'll end up with. And if you come across anything groundbreaking, please feel free to share in the comments below, or tag me on Instagram if you end up creating art with your homemade supplies. I would love to see what the mad scientist in you comes up with. As per usual, subscribe if you want more art-related videos from yours truly. Like this video if you enjoyed it, or dislike it if you didn't, because you have options. And until next time, stay creative, stay enthused, and keep on experimenting. Peace.